top story we're tracking at this hour. The Reserve Bank of India Ombudsman has received 68% more complaints in financial year 23. According to the annual report of Ombudsman scheme released by Reserve Bank of India, the central bank received 7,35,000 complaints between 1st of April 2022 to 31st of March 2023, showing an increase of approximately 68.24% more than last year. Now, public sector banks accounted for 41% of the total complaints, followed by private sector banks, which accounted for 31% of the complaints. In terms of category of complaints, a fifth of all the total complaints were concerning mobile and internet banking services, while another fifth were concerning loan as well as advances. Of the trends that stood out from that report, RBI recorded a total of 3,513 complaints against Paytm Payments Bank, which has been in the news recently. Highest complaints among any payments bank. 796 complaints were also received against Credit Information Bureau, highest among any credit bureau. That, of course, is according to the RBI Ombudsman report that is putting out some very interesting trends, tells you about how people are reporting banking institutions and what kind of problems they are having with banks as well as NBFCs. My colleague Krishna Kumar joining us here on the show. Krishna, a very interesting report basically goes on to tell you that people continue to still suffer from a lot of banking related, internet banking related issues year on year, a 68% jump.
Right, and it's, it's quite a significant jump, because if you take a look at the same data for financial year 21 and 22, for financial year 21 that increase from the previous year was about 15%, and in the last financial year 22, it was the increase was about 9%. So the fact that there's a 68% increase points to two things. One is how much India is transacting online, digital transactions, and the phenomenal growth of digital transactions. So that's the one thing you can take heart in, is the fact that it's, as you rightly pointing out, the maximum of complaints were on mobile payments, right? So which means that mobile payments are growing that much, and that's the reason why you're coming up with so many issues as well. And there's another important statistic that will also tell you that most of these complaints have been received in the digital form, in the complaint management systems or CMS through which they've come through. So 85% of these complaints have not come to the physical mode, they come to the digital mode, they come to the online mode.
So these are people who actually operate internet banking, a majority of whom don't already in India. Of those people, you have a very small subset who are actually making those complaints.
Right. The way I'm looking at it is that more than internet banking, it is about mobile payments. You're looking at the billions of transactions that a UPI does on a monthly basis. So which means that, from a UPI, which means that all the payment platforms, that includes your Google Pay, Phone Pay, Paytm, so all of these platforms are being used to conduct online digital transactions. And when people are increasingly using these online modes, which is your mobiles to transact and pay, they are running into issues, and through the same mobile probably they are lodging these complaints as well. So what it essentially tells you is that digital India is in full flow, in terms of transactions, because UPI is a global success story, billions of transactions every month, which means that you will have billions of issues as well, possibly speaking. So, I'm not saying it's billions of issues. You pointed out to the numbers. You're talking about 700,000 odd, 7 lakh odd complaints that have come through, and that's a 68% increase. But so there are two things that are happening. One is that number of complaints is a reflection, I think, of the number of transactions being done through mobiles, considering mobiles are a fifth of the mobile payments and one fifth of the complaints they got received. And second is the fact that 85% of those 7 lakh complaints came through the online mode. So which means that, this entire feedback loop is happening through online as well, so which is very important to note at this stage.
All right, so basically it goes on to tell you about India's growing prowess when it comes to digital and online banking, and 98% of these complaints were actually solved, so that's also a heartening figure there. But before we move on, I think it's also interesting to note that of all the payments bank, Paytm Payments Bank, which is soon going to be history come 15th of March, also received highest number of complaints.
Right, it topped the charts when it comes to number of complaints, and then it was followed up by the NSDL Payments Bank and followed by Airtel Payments Bank. So again, not very good data, keeping in mind the situation that Paytm Payments Bank finds itself in and the deadline that's approaching in 72 hours from now. So in that sense, RBI's action now doesn't seem all that odd, does it? They, when you look at this data,
absolutely,
you have so many complaints, and and a clear difference between number one and number two. Over 500 odd complaints on Paytm Payments Bank and 100 odd from the NSDL Payments Bank, which is number 2. So you're looking at a huge issue that is the RBI seems to have unearthed, and now it stands. RBI's actions seem all the more vindicated when you look at data like this.
Absolutely, and we did not have that data so far. So RBI's action is now put to context with the number of complaints that Paytm Payments Bank have received so far. A very interesting story emerging there by the way of a system which is increasingly getting popular when it comes to noting down complaints with regards to internet banking, more importantly dispersal of loans and issues with loans and their dispersal. RBI Ombudsman getting more and more complaints. There is a 68% jump year on year, 7 lakh odd complaints registered this financial year, the financial year gone by, possibly hinting at the fact that there are more number of people taking to internet banking, also more number of people getting themselves heard, making themselves heard with RBI when it comes to their problems.